Alright, hey everyone, thank you for stopping by this video. Micah here, and if you've been to this channel before, certainly I welcome you back and want to congratulate you for making it back to this video. And yes, forgive, I have a companion here that likes to preen himself and just hang out. So, maybe don't ignore him, but at the same time, the main point of this video here is to get right to the point about your eBay listing, right? An eBay listing and, getting to an efficient eBay listing process, right? Now, I don't claim to be a mastermind eBayer. To be honest, for me, it's pretty part-time. I have another business and, I'm a sales director, etc. So, but with this here, there's different reasons why I would sell on eBay, right now, because for one thing, I like to upgrade my stuff regularly, right? So, and that just means, sometimes I have old stuff that I don't use anymore, or I want to get something new, and that might be a reason why I want to sell something, right? So, and the thing is you can basically sell anything on eBay, right? So just going through about 15 points here that I feel for me helps me to make for an efficient but also effective and thorough listing process, right? So, when you're listing on eBay, it gives you a bunch of different factors to complete, like item specifics, description, your title, etc. So, I'm mostly talking about buy it now listings. There's also, of course, auctions, and a lot of this will probably apply, right? So at the same time, there might be some factors unique to that. There's different kinds of listers on eBay, of course. I get a lot of tips from the people we see on YouTube. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of them, and I like to shout them all out, but to be honest, I don't know all their names off the top of my head. So if you see other videos here, certainly encourage you to check those out for different perspectives and different tips, right? So there's plenty of people sharing a lot of knowledge. I want to shout them out, of course, like you say, but a lot of them are probably somewhere in this mix of videos. First thing you want to do is determine what you're going to list, right? Even maybe making a pile of a few things. Right now, some people might be like getting a lot of stuff, inventory, arbitrage, auctions, whatever other ways of sourcing inventory, right? Sourcing inventory, but at the same time, you might be like me, you're just kind of trying to sell some stuff part-time, get rid of some old stuff that you have, and maybe make some money in some way, right? And but for me, it's not like, I think I'm gonna make a fortune on eBay, but by all means, if you can make some extra money or some reasonable money with it, why not, if it's not taking up too much of your time from other, maybe more important endeavors, right? A lot of times we have a lot of leftover stuff that builds up, and we want to sell it, right? Or get rid of it. Maybe you donate it. That might be more efficient for you to just even throw some stuff away in some cases, right? But I recommend trying to get it to, be reused by someone who's the right person who needs that or wants to use that product from here on out, right? Maybe it's a secondhand product. Maybe you're a wholesaler and you're thinking, hey, you just got a bunch of inventory for a low price or somehow, and you want to sell it. You want to make sure it's okay to resell that product. You have resale rights to some extent with some products, right? So those are factors to maybe consider, but you'll probably learn those as you stumble into things. And I recommend, hey, something might sound daunting in the beginning, but if you go through the process a few times, you get more used to it, you get better at it, right? It's kind of like, playing guitar or a musical instrument or a sport or something. If you do it a few times, all of a sudden you say, hey, wait a minute, I know the procedures, right? So it becomes more efficient every time you do it, right? So understand there's a learning process. Do it a few times. Put yourself at risk a couple times, not like big risk, but hey, try that new experiment one time about your shipping or whatever you're going to try, here and there in the mix. Don't be totally afraid to extend a little bit of risk here and there to experiment. But at the same time, stick to the fundamentals, right? So determining what you're going to list, right? Determining what you're going to list, new or used, could be a factor, right? If it's used, especially, you're going to want to really probably clean it up and prepare it, right? Compile all the components of your items that you're going to list, right? If you're selling like an appliance that has several different components to it, or a kitchen appliance that has a bunch of different attachments to it, or a vacuum cleaner that has a bunch of attachments or accessories, compile as many or all of those components as you can, right? So that way you have them all in one place to take your pictures, right? And you can clean them all. So that's the next thing, right? Cleaning your items. In my opinion, you generally also want to vacuum and wipe them down, right? Vacuum them and wipe them down. And so that takes a little bit of a process. But if you know when you're doing it, if you're going through this sequence of about approximately 15 steps here, this one probably being like the third step, determining what you're going to list, right? and then one item at a time in this case. So I'm not like getting a bunch of things and going through one process with them and then going through another process with them, because a lot of times you'll have to go back, in my opinion, and have to do some extra steps if you want a good thorough listing for each item, right? If you want a good thorough listing to increase the searchability of your listing, not only in eBay but outside of eBay, like Google, right, which is much bigger, I'm sure, than eBay, right, as far as search. So you want to get, that kind of searchability. You want to be thorough with each listing. That's the reason why I do one item at a time. So also, like you said, cleaning and vacuuming and wiping the item down good before taking the pictures, in my opinion, is important if you want to be regularly selling a good amount of items quickly, that kind of stuff, and getting, top dollar for them, right? So part of the reasons why I'm talking about this list is to be able to get top dollar for the things that you are listing and selling, right? So that you're not necessarily to rip anybody off like top dollar, but to be able to not have to feel, oh, I got to sell this monitor for only $20 when it's really worth $80 generally in the market. If we just clean it up, maybe we can sell it faster or at a higher price, right? So that means, like I said, vacuuming and wiping it down, your items, and just doing a good thorough cleaning. Maybe sometimes you have to even take a toothpick and clean out something out of the edges of something you're selling, whatever, maybe a little bit, but if you know when you're doing it here and you know the steps, it's kind of a quick process, right? You just go through and clean it up real quick, have a rag, a good sized rag, maybe at the end even shine it up with just a little touch of some Windex and a paper towel or something, depending on exactly what you're selling. So when you take those pictures, do this generally right before you take the pictures, right? So that way, it's gonna look at its prime cleanliness when you take those pictures, right? So then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take the pictures, right? You take the photos, right? Probably maybe with your cell phone or something like that, right? Or a digital camera or some other kind. But if you just take them with your cell phone, you want to consider some factors when you're taking some pictures, and to help make the picture taking and image uploading more efficient, trying to set up the scenario to where you can take your pictures to where they're at the right distance from the item, so that you're not having to do as much editing when you're uploading the images, right? They have a good background, right? Generally, really just a white background for most all items, right? A white background, right? So that you can have maybe a 5 by 7 foot kind of white background type of cloth, or a drop cloth or something like that. As pure solid white, or a white board, which I actually have right here. Get one of these on Amazon or something. This one's pretty sizable, just a cardboard trifold board. I think it was $11. It's pretty big to put in this video, but you can have that. You can put it on the floor. Be gentle with that, because you don't want it to wear out fast. If you're putting something solid on there, it might create dents, etc. Or if something's dirty, like I said, that's why you want to clean it, right? So one reason to clean it, so it doesn't mess up your whatever background you're using. You might have something like that, or like I said, or a 5 by 7 cloth that you can put on the floor, and maybe you can stand something like this up right behind it. Now you can also, for smaller items, use a light box, right? So you might be familiar with some of these different ways to create a background for the image that you're taking, right? And then when you do this, then you can also use the white background image enhancement inside of eBay's app, for example, to even block out any added white. But it'll be better than just taking it on any other background, because now you can do that with more accurate outline display. Because if I take a picture of something and it's on the carpet, or it's against a similar colored background or camouflage background or something like that, and then I do the white background on the eBay app, it's not necessarily going to be very accurate. There could be all these little glitches and aberrations and stuff like that. So just something to consider, right? So, well, if you take them like that, and like you said, taking them from the right distance. Now, another thing too is to consider the aspect ratio of the image you're taking. Are you taking a 1 by 1 or a 9 by 16 or a full-sized image, right? So sometimes you might want to change that depending on the size of the item, right? So, or whatever different factors, right? Maybe the lighting's another factor. Maybe you want to use the flash on your phone, right, to create that right lighting. Maybe you need to have an extra light next to it, or you have some kind of special light, like a cinema type lighting or something like that. But bottom line, having some reasonable lighting so you can get a good photos of the image and take as many images as possible, right? Almost fill up the eBay, like they let you upload like 24 pictures now. Some items, obviously, you'd be thinking, well, I can't take 24 pictures of this, it doesn't make any sense, but take at least 5, right? But maybe, typically, especially with clothes, take like 10 or 20, right? Somewhere in that range, and maybe even just all 24, just do different things, and that way your prospect that's looking at it can really feel confident when they make the decision to buy it that it is the right item for them. So it prevents a return, right? So this prevents a return. So these are just, like you said, a few tips here. So maybe you write them down in this order, and if it does help you, I encourage liking and, of course, commenting, and let me know if it does assist in this process. So I know it's a little lengthy, but once you go through these steps, I think you'll find that if you just do this with each item quickly and get it listed, you can move on to the next item and be focused on that item for this 15-step type process. So we said take all the photos you can, right? And at this point, you're also able to use a measuring tape while you're taking those photos, right? So you can take dimensions of the image, and that's part of the photos you take, right? You take it with a measuring tape next to it in different dimensions, especially with like clothing items or items where it's not easy to discern the size. So that means we want to take all the dimensions as well while we're doing that. You know, hey, is this item like a 10 by 7 by 14-inch item, you know? So we can take those dimensions, we can even put those in the item specifics to create further searchability, right? So that's important to get these few things in there, right? So you're taking into account the camera angles and the distance and stuff like that. So the settings on your camera, so you're taking the right proportions of images and right from the right distance, so you don't have to trim them all down when you upload them. I can just upload my photos and they're all right at the right distance. There's not a bunch of white border around it. It's real close up to the item. The item is taking up as much of the image as possible, right? So like I said, measuring with tape measure, and then also with the weight, right? Maybe you have a good accurate specialized scale, but at the same time, really a good digital regular scale, probably going to give you a good idea, pretty accurate weight for most items, right? Especially bigger items, you don't have to have them quite as accurate. Smaller items probably don't have to be super accurate. If it's 4.3 pounds, you put 4.5 pounds, just make sure just a drop over. Same time, don't go over too much. You don't want to be spending too much money on shipping, right? So that's the reason why measuring this at this point is important, right? The dimensions and the weight of your item, so that when you go in to create the shipping section, right, you're able to accurately put the approximate actual dimensions. Also considering what kind of package you might be sending it in. Like, can I send this in just a small box? Do I have any boxes? Like I said, when you're buying stuff too from other places like Amazon or eBay or whatever, save all your packaging, right? Save all the packaging, right? Because you can use that to send out all the stuff that you buy. I mean, you sell, right? So you sell an item you already have with some boxes. Same time, that takes up space. So it kind of depends on where you live. Like you said, you might have limited options. Maybe fold your boxes and put them in a storage room. Maybe, you know, some of them at least, or use a big box to put a lot of the smaller boxes in, and you're, you know, maybe throw a few of the worst ones out or the least usable ones out. Be a little bit discerning, but generally speaking, for the most part, save all packaging materials and boxes that you get. I don't underestimate it. When you open anything that you buy, that you ordered or even bought and took home, be cautious in opening it. Don't just tear it open, right? So that way we can save all these, just extra tips, right, for selling on eBay and just reselling a lot of stuff and preserving your stuff so that it has good resale value in the future, right? And this is really overall part of this strategy of just these listing elements. All really comes into this other bigger strategy is to kind of almost just list everything you have, right? And even if the price is a little higher, put the price, you know, no lower than you're willing to sell it for, right? Even if it's a higher price, whatever. Say, like, you know, bottom line, you don't have to sell the thing, so you can determine the price. People are doing their own research. If they find it for a low price, generally speaking, they're going to find it somewhere else. But, you know, I mean, if they pay a few more dollars for your price by, you know, maybe it wasn't something you were meaning to sell, you had it at a higher price, but, you know, bottom line, you're still filling market demand, you're solving a problem, so don't feel bad about that, right? At the same time, that doesn't mean to rip people off. Give fair prices, right? In the realm of fair prices, That way you can draw people to your item as well, right? If they see the prices do obviously if it's really extreme. Same time, if the price is higher, there might be other factors they're considering. Does it ship faster? Does it look like it's cleaner? Does it look like it was taken better care of? Do they have a lot of pictures of it that make me feel more trustworthy about this purchase? Do they have a lot of good feedback on their page? And that's one thing that this has helped me to do as well. The concept here is to under promise and over deliver, right? Under promise and over deliver, right? With more information than necessary, better listing, quality listing than even necessary, right? And then when they actually receive it, it's you taking pictures of all the blemishes, right? Any blemishes in the item, any scuffs as much as possible, or in the pictures, right? There's 24 pictures, right? You can also upload a video. I'm not real familiar with that yet, but I think that's also a good idea as well with some items. You might want to take a quick video and show them about the item, just a quick little synopsis of it in a video, right? Especially with rare items or items that are hard to really see all aspects of in a couple of pictures, in some pictures, maybe in some ways, right? So those are things to consider. Like all white backgrounds, because not only for eBay search, but image search and Google image search and other search engine image searches will prefer a white background, right, to put in their listings. So don't forget that, all right? So like I said, let me know if you're getting any value out of this, if it's helping you, but I certainly encourage you liking and sharing and sending to your eBay friends, right? Maybe some of them will get something out of it and appreciate that. But anyway, like you said here, so those are kind of their factoring. Consider the quality, aspect ratio, lighting, and the range, and the defects and blemishes when you're taking the pictures, right? So then the next thing you do is kind of do some quick basic research on the item, just kind of quickly using the internet or your phone's internet, and just say, you can probably find something on the item about the brand name, right? Probably most of the time, if you don't already know it, the brand name, maybe even a model number of some kind, right? A model number. And then, once you have at least those couple of things, right? Those are a couple of things you can add into your title, right? Which is important for searchability. Having keywords, a clean listing, no all caps or special characters, right? It's just a good clean listing, each word's capitalized, etc. The first letter, at least, just the first letter, but a good quality looking title, right? And this descriptive, using some of the keywords that someone would be searching for that with, right? Also adding that title again in the description area, right? Maybe you use an AI description when you do the description or whatever, but also adding specifically the title, which oftentimes will be down there automatically when you get to the description. So this is when you're making the listing, right? So it's asking you to upload these photos that you just took. Hopefully you don't have to do much editing with them if you considered these factors, right? So that way you're saving yourself extra time. So you upload those photos, you can move to the next step. Maybe you have to rotate some of them, that's possible, but you don't have to do a lot of stuff. Maybe in some cases you have to do the white background to get a more clean white background, but you might just do that mainly for the main first photo, the main photo, or some of the photos that you might switch around to be the main photo later. For some reason, you just say, hey, I want to put this other photo as the main photo. So that's just possibly, use those, put a white, definitely solid, try to use the background, the tool on eBay to create an all white background. But like you said, it's going to be much better result when you've taken it on some kind of contrasting white background to begin with, right? So that's important. So consider the quality aspect ratio. Basic research on the item, right? That's going to include some of these item specifics, like the model, the brand name, the model number. You should already have the dimensions at least in your head, but you might even be writing them down for each item, just quickly making a quick note. You have a scratch paper or something like that. So that way, when you get to this part, but you don't forget them, right? So just make note of those measurements when you take them. When you take pictures of the item with the tape measure next to it in different angles, showing the dimensions of the item, right? So that way people can be sure this is the size I'm expecting this item to be, right? Because sometimes that can be confusing. They get the item, it's disappointing to them that it's smaller or bigger than they were expecting, right? And they'll go back to the listing and they can see that you measured it. They can say, oh, well, wait a minute, you did show me the measurements that at least you were honest about, what you were sending them, right? So, so considering that, basic research, then use the AI description if it's available, sure, right? And then, like I said, add the title that you created down in the right above it or below the description that is created, and then also add your own personal touch with an extra sentence or two about, you're selling, maybe why you're selling it, good reasons. These are extra things that you can only give so much detail, obviously, in one video, but give them maybe a little bit of a reason why you're selling it. Hey, we just bought another one and we don't need this one anymore, or whatever. This isn't suited to my needs. I just moved, etc. And then fast shipping, and then maybe put a footer with link back to or a reminder to go back to your store, right? To go back to your store. People reading these descriptions, they can go back to your store and maybe see other items that are similar or other items they might want to buy, and it might increase your traffic when everybody is reading a description on any of your listings, right? So an extra footer at the bottom, in my opinion, could potentially be helpful. Complete as many item specifics as possible, right? But this goes back to also completing a good title with a good amount of elements, like maybe the model name, the brand and model name, and a few elements, like if it's a clothing item, it was the size or the color, etc. So that those will automatically be filled in the item specifics, right? So that way there's less items to fill out in the specifics, but also fill out every item specific that you reasonably can with any meaningful data that you can, that's accurate, right? That's accurate to increase the number of searches that you could possibly receive throughout eBay and Google and Bing, Yahoo, whatever else might be indexing or searching your eBay listing, right? So especially if it's on there for a while, maybe all of a sudden it hits some search listing somewhere and then it sells, right? Now, also be prepared if you're keeping your prices at a reasonably, not say super high amount, but if you're keeping your prices up, then expect to have to hold on to items for a while sometimes, right? At the same time, you can sell almost anything. Now, you can certainly do all this stuff about researching everything about how, the item sell. I recommend searching, maybe what that item has sold for on eBay in the past by going to search the item in eBay and then hit the completed and sold check mark at the bottom of the menu on the left side, so you can see which items have sold and of that particular item. Maybe use eBay's image search on the app to look up the item as well, and it'll find up all the other listings of that item, and you can see which ones have sold, how much they sold for, so that could help you. There's the Terapeak inside of eBay. There's other tools to help you find a price. Same time, I say, don't overthink. Do some research into the item to get all the item specifics. But some stuff, might take you a little bit of extra time. It's not like, you be thorough, but also you get better and better and more thorough naturally at the process as you do it a few times. By the time you've made 30 or 50 listings, you're going, okay, I understand this, what I need to do with this, etc. Right? So those are adding item specifics. Now there's also other elements in there, like I said, the model number or the part number, or manufacturer part number, right? Or the global ID number. Also the UPC code, right, of the item, right, which is often, if it's a new item or if you had the package to it, it could be right there on the barcode, under the barcode on the item's packaging, right, a barcode, a UPC code, right, in there, and then you want to get all the digits from left to right, including the two little digits all the way far to left and right, and add them into the UPC code when you make the listing, right? Sometimes it'll identify the product, sometimes it won't. It'll say, oh, well, we saved the UPC code, right? So in that case, you probably know it's accurate. It came from the package, right? Whether it's new or you still have the package or whatever. It's a UPC code, which is a big deal to add that to your listing to increase visibility, searchability, right? And manufacturer part number, right? You also can find some of these on just Google in the search engines, or maybe in ChatGPT or the AI, right? Something like that. Find some of these UPC codes. Sometimes it's ambiguous, right? Sometimes it's for maybe a different color of the same model, stuff like that, right? So you want to really do your best to try to get as accurate as you can, right, on the UPC codes. Sometimes if it's really like the same product and it's maybe just a different color, might still get away with something like that, but other than that, a couple little minor discrepancies. For the general, you become just try to really find the UPC code, right? If you can't find it on the search engine, go to see if you can find that product on Amazon or eBay and go look in their descriptions and use the search feature on your browser, Control F to find the UPC code somewhere on that page. If you don't see it, obviously, just by glancing, you can maybe find it. Maybe it's not there, but maybe it is, right? And you can use that UPC code in your listing, right? So that only really doesn't take very long. You do that. You maybe look up the MPN number, which is probably the model number, right? You could use. Then there's also maybe a global ID number. You might have that be asked for that. You might not, depending on what you're selling. If you can see if you can research or find that somehow, great. If you can't, you can't, right? You want to be somewhat efficient. You can't spend forever on every listing trying to research some stuff that's hard to find sometimes. So sometimes you just have to make a decision to move forward, right? But at the same time, get as many item specifics as you can, right? But like I say, so a lot of that goes into writing your title beforehand. So complete as many specifics as you can for maximum searchability. Use the AI description, add something extra, personal touch, fast shipping, and add a footer to check out other items in your store, similar items in your store, etc. And then now you want to do some more advanced research at that point and determine the pricing, right? With or without the shipping. Consider that, right? Now, I do mostly like all calculated shipping, right? Because I know that a lot of irregular items, the shipping could vary a bit depending on where it's going to. So, in my opinion, yeah, I'm gonna just charge the calculated shipping. Now, some people like to do free shipping, and that probably maybe you can get more sales. I've only sold like maybe 150 items or something like that, so it's not like I'm, listing all day. I list part-time here and there, like 3 to 5 items, stuff like that, right? So, but once you're also culminating these item listings on your eBay, like I said, if you're holding your prices high, don't necessarily expect to sell all of it right away, right? And even if you put your prices low, that's not necessarily going to help you sell all your stuff so much faster, right? Maybe some of it, depends on what it is, right? Is there a lot of competition? Other people are listing that same thing on eBay and they're just looking for the lowest price. It's pretty straightforward what it is. There's not really a big discrepancy if one has a higher quality than the other. It's the same thing. 2 big lighters, which one's the lower price, right? For what they're looking for, stuff like that, right? So other items might be more rare, or they're not easily able to find the same quality of what you have of that same item, right? So there might be factors that are giving you an edge besides the price, right? So like I said, but if you're holding your prices a little high, it doesn't mean you're not going to sell your item, right? Like you said, especially if you're thorough about your listing, you're considering all these factors. Other people have it's a half-ass listing, right? They have a bad listing. It's not very thorough, right? They're probably less likely to make the sale. They're less likely to even find the buyer in the first place because they didn't fill out many of the specifics of the details. They didn't write, hey, it was just 1 unit or how many I have left, etc. Right? So research and determining the shipping type, right? So you're determining with or without shipping. Am I going to price my items with or without shipping? Me with calculated shipping, I feel like I can generally get a pretty low price for shipping, mostly using eBay because I am measuring the dimensions and the weight, so I'm getting most accurate as I can, right? You can give a discount to the discounted shipping prices to your buyers, which I like to do because I want to hold my price on the item reasonably high, and I want them to get the discounted shipping. Now, you could also not pass out any, and there's like a settings inside eBay. You can have them, pay for like a slightly higher shipping rate that's not necessarily the discounted rate we would get as an eBay seller, right? And that might get you a few extra bucks here and there, but from my perspective, it's kind of like, then they go to the shipping and then they see all this extra shipping charge and they might back out of buying something they were just thinking about buying, right? But if the shipping is pretty low, right, they're like, okay, well, it's only 11 bucks, let me go ahead and do it, right? So, like your price might be a little higher, but then the shipping is a bit higher, then they might back out of it, right? But if your price is a little higher, not like super high, but if it's held up there, then if the shipping is low, that doesn't necessarily, it's not a game killer, right? Once they get to sometimes people don't even see the shipping until they get to the checkout, even though it's right there on your page, right? They might not even really inspected the page very much, depending on what the item is, right? So they might just click and just went to buy it because it looked like basically what they needed. Didn't require a whole lot of research per se to find what they were looking for. So those are different reasons for that, right? So research, determining the shipping type, right? Are you going to do it priority mail or ground mail, or are you going to do like FedEx or UPS if you feel the need for, maybe they have better prices on shipping a bigger item or something like that, or a heavier item, In that case, you might consider that. Same time, you can use the ground advantage for pretty heavy items, I think up to 70 pounds if I'm correct. And depending on where you're at, you might even also go to USPS.com, and if you don't already have an online account there, create one. And you can also arrange for USPS to come and pick up your items for free, right? So, but it's only like at their discretion, right? If you want a specific time, I think the cost is like $24.95. So maybe on a bigger item, if that's critical to have it picked up at a certain time, that might be some reasonable option. It's a more expensive item where it's worth it to spend the extra $25. You might just take them to the post office. Maybe you can just ship them from your home, no problem, just with your regular mail. But in some cases, maybe you're living in a scenario where it's not easy to ship from where you're at, but they could do a pickup. So you can do that right at USPS.com. Now, UPS also does pickup, but I believe the minimum there is $14.95, about $15 for them to come do a pickup. Might be more for some areas, I don't know, but they would come do a pickup of a package for you to ship by UPS, right? Which might be appropriate maybe for some items. You might get more used to that. Like I said, if you're just brand new, probably most of the time with most items, you're probably fine just using ground advantage to 1, 2, or 3 day, depending on how fast you like to get your items out there. I'm usually like 1 or 2 days. I'm going to ship it basically right away, no problem. Unless I had like a lot of orders or something, but I'm not, like I say, doing it as a full-time thing. I don't anticipate necessarily having 10, 20, 30 orders a day per se anytime real soon, but at the same time you could see it happening. Like I just had 3 today, just an example. But yeah, so researching and determining shipping type, right, including accurate dimensions, right? That's the reason why you want to have those measurements taken down, maybe on even a notepad when you took the dimensions, but when you took the photos, you measured everything about the item, so that way you can give some dimensions to it with the shipping that are accurate, right? That way you save money on the shipping. Your buyer saves money on shipping, right? They feel like if you're doing maybe returns where the buyer is paying the return shipping, like I'm offering at least a 30-day return basically on all items, right? I'm not saying, will not accept returns on anything. I'm willing to accept a 30-day return on anything as long as it's not further damaged or damaged, right? So that's, but in my case, I'm not necessarily doing a free return, like they have to pay for the shipping to return it back. That's the reason why I like to keep the shipping low by having accurate shipping too. So when I'm sending it to them, maybe they were shipping it back using eBay system, they'll probably just use the same dimensions or something like that. So do you have any other notes in here as an experienced seller? By all means, I certainly encourage your comments and corrections, because I certainly don't know everything about it. I'm not a master seller, but I'm just giving you what has helped me here so far, like doing this sequence here. Now you don't have to sit here and like look at this list every single time. Once you've done it a few times, you generally know what you're going through, and you can go and update a listing here and there if you need to. But this will prevent you from having to do so much of that. You'll be more complete when you actually finish the listing, right? So then, so determining accurate dimensions and pretty accurate weight, right? If you want to get some special scale, more of a kitchen type scale or something like that, or one of the special scale you get off Amazon that measures down to the gram or ounce or every time, you could do that, but it's not really that necessary unless you're trying to be real super accurate with your shipping. But generally speaking, if you go a couple ounces over, you might pay a few cents extra here and there. Your buyer will, but it's probably not going to affect you very much. But if you keep that shipping pretty low, it's going to probably help you sell a little bit more. You could put free shipping, but like I said, considering certain items, especially a lot of items of irregular weight, you got to remember that free shipping. It's going to add up and come out of your bottom line. You might think, oh, well, this person's in New York and I'm in, I'm down here in, California or something like that. That's going to cost extra shipping. But, and that's just what they have to pay to get the item from where you're at to them, unless they can find a lower price and a better deal. Like, you're filling the market right there. So let them buy the item, even if they have to pay that extra shipping to get it from California to New York. That's calculated shipping. That's just my opinion, right? But if you want to do the free shipping and you're doing what you're doing, you're calculating it into your price, you're factoring it in, then by all means, you know what you're doing. You might experiment a little bit until you know what you're doing with that, right? Return policy, like I said, I'm doing a 30-day return policy on basically everything, right? The 60-day option, I'm not going to mess with that. It's a little too long in my opinion. By that time, they certainly know whether they're going to want to keep it or not. Generally speaking, they should, right? As an educated or even experienced buyer, you know, when you buy stuff, you have to get experience with that process as well, right? So, let me see here, what else I have. So, like you said, just basically getting as many specifics as you have, I'd probably say is one of the most important things, right? Having a good descriptive title with keywords in it, even before you get to those specifics, save you time, right? So, this is about 15 points right here. Promotions, let's see here, see if they have one more note. Can't really tell what I wrote, but about 15 points there to help you just list your item completely, right? And then you can move on to the next item, right? And you can feel like each item is pretty complete when you're done listing it, because they can probably almost guarantee, and you probably, if you are an eBay lister, probably if you've done it before where you've tried to process a few items where you might, like a lot of people don't even really clean the items they put on eBay, right? And yeah, they're not going to command as much of a price in many cases. And with this strategy, like I said, you might take all the stuff that you have in your home practically, maybe not everything, it depends on what you have, what, you know, kind of home scenario you have. Maybe you've just gotten some stuff out of storage or whatever reasons you're trying to sell some old stuff. Maybe you're thinking, hey, I want to get a new such and such or an upgraded version of such and such or the latest version of such and such. Or maybe you're not necessarily thinking about upgrading some item, but there still is some upgrade possible. So think about everything you have in your home that maybe is the older stuff that you'd want to sell first, right? Pull it out, compile all the components of it, clean it up, weigh the dimensions and all that stuff, take the pictures with measure tape next to it, right, to give an idea, and maybe some other elements that you want to add, some other images, maybe with some graphics into your listing or something like that. But even without that, you know, mainly for selling used items specifically, especially, right, you know, here you're going to probably take a good amount of photos of each item almost every time, right? So that's important to do all that at that time. So maybe this helps. Hopefully you got some tips out of it. There's definitely certain bunch of other factors I would consider, but if you're doing this consistently, right, maybe it doesn't take a lot of time because you have a job or other business or whatever it is, and you're thinking, oh, well, maybe you just want to kind of sell some of your old stuff you have in the garage or storage or wherever it is that you haven't used in a while, or you're wanting to upgrade something. You have an old monitor and you want to get a newer, faster refresh rate or something like that, then go ahead and list all the current stuff you have on eBay, a little bit at a time, one item a day if that's nothing else, right? And with this process here too, you're listing one item at a time, so it's spacing them out as you list a few items. So it's kind of hitting the eBay algorithm. eBay algorithm is kind of hitting it at a certain you know, cadence, right? A certain cadence. It's making consistency, right? Consistency. Listing something every day is also a factor. At the same time, just listing one item at a time, a little tedious kind of, you know, I think on one item. But if you know this process, you generally know what you're going to do when you do it, at least. Right? Generally know what you're going to do when you do it, especially if you've done it a good few times, right? So I highly encourage just taking the chance that, you know, think, hey, this seems a little lengthy, or, you know, there's a little bit much to consider. But if you're already listing some stuff on eBay, you have an eBay store. You know, think about it. Like, you know, you could average an extra $1,000 a month in just old stuff that you don't reuse anymore, right? You can upgrade, especially before it wears out, right? Like, like as soon as you buy something, right, take the pictures of it right away, right? Create an eBay listing for it, right? You can just save it as a draft. You can unlist it. You don't have to have it listed right away, but it could be set up as a listing. Maybe a year or two down the road, you want to just list that item. You could take new pictures if you need to and add it in there. Whatever, you could have it listed all that time at a higher price. Maybe you don't necessarily want to sell it right away. You're using it or something like that. But if it does sell, now that's something to consider, though. You would want to be keeping an eye on your listings regularly, at least every couple of days, just so you're kind of scanning your listing to say, hey, wait, do I still have this item, or is this item somehow damaged or lost or anything? So you don't have much of a chance of having something like that happen. Depends on how many items you have listed, right, and how much time you're putting into it. But if you put some time, this is a way to be efficient, to make 2 to 5 listings a day, maybe more, right? In a reasonably efficient fashion, in an effective fashion, right? And culminate until you're making however many sales you want to make a day that's surpassing that. Maybe you're making an extra 1 to 5 or more sales a day. Now you have to list a little bit more to keep up with your inventory, right? So that's a factor to consider, right? If you want to really grow the eBay business in some big way, right? But you're going to have that point where all of a sudden you're selling more than you can even list. That means you're going to probably need help, right? But at this point, just listing at 2 to 5 items most every day would be probably a big deal to help you get started on the process and just go through as many of these steps as you can. So hey, thank you for listening. This is Mike here for a few minutes, just doing my best to share whatever detail I can. This is what I call my fairly super efficient. Now, obviously, there's other people that do much more, probably factors in terms of research and maybe a few more item specifics that I might not have mentioned here. You can see them when you're listing different items. They ask for different item specifics for different types of items, clothing, appliances, etc., electronics, right? So consider as many of those specifics as you can. Use Google to research the item, right? You can look at what are the dimensions of the item, right? Maybe sometimes you forgot to get the dimensions or something like that somehow or whatever. I recommend not forgetting it, but if you do, maybe that's a last resort. You can look up the dimensions using ChatGPT or Google or something and find some of those item specifics right there that you can add into your listing. Okay, Micah Carter here signing out, but I definitely appreciate you listening. And like I said, if you did get any value out of this, if you feel like it's going to help you get more efficient process in terms of also a good quality listing process and maybe a little bit of mindset in terms of how you could get a bunch of listings going on at a reasonable price with just inventory you have in your home right now for starters, then also you're also sourcing maybe some good deals in some way. Maybe not making a big deal out of it. Maybe when you buy stuff, you get second one 50% off. You buy that extra thing 50% off. Now you can list it for full price on eBay, right, or something like that, right? So those are just the things. You can go back to the previous listing. Don't copy it word for word. Don't use their images, but you can get a lot of the item specifics from it, right? When you buy it, maybe you're going to buy it and just list it, even though you're planning on using it and having it and keeping it maybe for at least a while. Same time, you might list it for a little bit overpriced, right? If someone buys it, hey, you make a little profit, you can do another one. Maybe buy the same item again, or even buy a better version now, because now you have the option to replace it, right? So that's just, if you had experience with the previous party, say, hey, wait, I'm looking for something with more of this or that. Now you know what you want in that product more when you buy another version, right? So anyway, Mikey here signing out. Let me know if you listen in. Certainly appreciate you listening in. Like, share, comment, and certainly come back to this channel. See you next time.